Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Ayaradha Madhava Kunja Bihari Ayaradha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Prantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Good morning, dear Prabhus. Okay, so we have it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 5, Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. And today's text is 20 and 21. Okay, let's go ahead and recite the verse. Um, 20. Okay. Padayo patitam balam pratinan Dhyasis sasuraha parisvajya chiram dorbhyam paramam api nirvritim. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. When Hiranyakashipu saw that his child had fallen at his feet and was offering obeisances. As an affectionate father, he immediately began showering blessings upon the child and embraced him with both arms. A father naturally feels happy to embrace his son, and Hiranyakashipu became very happy in this way. Text 21. Aropyankam avagraya murdhani asru kalam bubhi asincham vikasad vaktram adam aha yudhistira aropyam kam avagraya murdhani asru kalambubhi asincham vikasat vaktram asam aha yudhisthir aropyam kam avagrahaya murdhani asru kalambubhi asincham vikasad vaktram adam aha yudhisthir. Okay, who would like to try?
Aropyankam avagraya murdhan yashrukalam bhubihi asinchan vikasad vatram idam aha yudhishthira. And forgive me.
Oh, Jai. Anyone else?
Aropyankam avagrahya murdhanyashurakalam bubihi asinchan vikasat vaktram idam aha yudhishtira.
Aropyankam avagraya Purdhaniyashrukalambuvihi Asinchan Vikashadvaktram Idam Aha Yudhistira.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you. Aropya, placing. Ankam, on the lap. Avagraya Madhurani, smelling his head. Ashru, of tears. Kala Ambubhi, from the with water from drops. Asincham, moistening. Vikasat Vaktram, his smiling face. Idam, this. Aha, said. Yudhisthira, O Maharaj Yudhisthira. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Narad Muni continued, my dear King Yudhisthira, Hiranyakashipu seated Prahlad Maharaj on his lap and began smelling his head, with affectionate tears gliding down from his eyes and moistening the child's smiling face. He spoke to his son as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. If a child or disciple falls at the feet of the father or spiritual master, the superior responds by smelling the head of the subordinate. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurnumitam Yana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Panchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhurevacha patitanam pavanabhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, dear devotees, so we have a one-line purport. Please let me get some intelligence to say something about smelling the head of the subordinate. So, of course, we've been hearing now already about the context of the situation. Prahlad Maharaj has already been speaking prior, and we've been discussing, it seems like, the principal topic about friends and enemies. And, there's a lot to be said about that. And, devotees have been sharing their realizations about friends and enemies. And of course, the Bhagavatam has been gradually guiding us in this pastime. So we see, the situation is very intriguing situation. We've seen, Hiranyakashipu. I've already tried to kill his son in so many different ways, but Prahlad Maharaj, is remaining very, very fixed. He's not perturbed, and we see in text 20, Prahlad Maharaj is actually paying obeisances to his father, Hiranyakashipu, when he saw him. And so we see that when Prahlad Maharaj, of course, paid obeisances to his father, you must know his father is, such a big king, royalty, of course, he's a prince. And his father, immediately becomes very, very affectionate towards him. Just open this one document here. Life moves so quickly. Where are you? Okay, we're here. So, yeah, we see that, there's this exchange happening between, father and child. And we can see the scenario the way it is, depicted here in the Bhagavatam, that there is this natural love between father and child happening in these two particular verses. Prahlad Maharaj is, paying obeisances to his father. His father seems to, become very emotional, when he sees this act of his child, because of course, he's been hearing so much, about this child from the teachers, how obstinate he is, how he is not, following exactly how they've been teaching him. And, as a result, he had to be disciplined. And we saw, the teachers in previous verses, they even resorted to the last means for discipline, which was, taking out a stick. So we see that Hiranyakashipu, when he sees his son pay obeisances, you must know Prahlad Maharaj is not faking it. He's not just, doing some formality, He is in the role of a child, and, his father is a great king. And, this is what a subordinate is meant to do in terms of, such a great personality as Hiranyakashipu. So Prahlad Maharaj, of course, out of genuine affection for his father, he is, paying his respectful obeisances. And we see in that regard, when Hiranyakashipu sees that act, his heart seems to have softened. So, of course, we, know the atrocities of Hiranyakashipu and how he has been, terrorizing all the world's great sense enjoyer. But of course, the one quality that, eventually got him into so much of trouble, even to the point of his death, was that he was envious of Vishnu. So we can see that Prahlad Maharaj, just because of his attitude, because of his divine qualities, he has evoked, such heartfelt affection from his father. So even though his father is, such a great big demon, even because he's such a big demon, even just, because of Prahlad Maharaj's divine qualities and, his behavior, his perfect behavior, he was able to evoke this affection from his father. So we'll gradually learn how, this, of course, we understand Hiranyakashipu's momentary softening of his heart, is just in relation to the material world. And so we can see that from this example of Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu's relationship, that, of course, from the demon's point of view, he is, very easily agitated, easily pleased, easily displeased. In this case, of course, he was pleased by Prahlad Maharaj's behavior, but we'll see, in coming verses, how quickly that turns. So, material relationships, as far as from Hiranyakashipu's point of view, is very, very temporary. Because, Hiranyakashipu, of course, like we said, he's denying, the existence of Vishnu, the supremacy of Lord Vishnu. And he's very, very envious. He wants that position to be the supreme controller. So just from a material point of view, he wants, his son to follow in his footsteps, wants him to also become a big, great demon like himself. And, we understand that in the material world, all these relationships are very, very unstable and temporary. So we want to go on to the spiritual platform, just like, Prahlad Maharaj has all these divine qualities that we've, read about earlier. And we're seeing it in his behavior as well. It's not just reading and saying, we're seeing it in his actual behavior as well. So even though Prahlad Maharaj was, persecuted so heavily by his father, he is able to show such humility and respect. And of course, Hiranyakashipu's natural affection surfaces as soon as he sees this gesture from his son. So even this demoniac quality or qualities, nature that Hiranyakashipu has is actually momentarily subdued by natural affection between a father and child. So we can understand from this example that love between a father and child, and in general, love softens even the hardest heart. So we can see, who can have a more hard heart than Hiranyakashipu. Then text 21, Narad Muni continued, "My dear king, Hiranyakashipu seated Prahlad Maharaj on his lap and began smelling his head. With affectionate tears gliding down from his eyes and moistening the child's smiling face, he spoke as follows." So we can see Hiranyakashipu is having this very affectionate moment. And so he picks Prahlad Maharaj, who's, small boy, places him on his lap, and, with tears in his eyes, he starts to speak. And we'll see how quickly, things start to change in the next few verses. So this concept of smelling his son's head, it seems like it's some sort of a tradition, a sign of deep affection. Initially, some places it mentions that this, idea of smelling the child's head was a Vedic tradition. But then I found, where is that now? The European Institute of Perinatal Mental Health, the Marcy Society. Anyway, some big organization. They have, published lots of research based on smelling a baby's head. And it seems like it's not just a Vedic tradition now. There's so much of science-backed studies about this concept of baby smell. I'll just quickly read a little bit of their article. For many years, when newborns where newborn's particular smell came from was not clear. Was it their sweat, some leftover substance from birth, amniotic fluid? Now a team directed by Mamika Ozaki, professor from Kobe University, has been the first to determine the chemical composition of the smell produced by newborn babies' heads. The new study analyzed both the chemical composition and the psychological impact of the baby's head odor to understand how that sweet smell may help newborns to get their mother's attention. For the study, special caps were put on 5 newborn babies' heads to absorb the smells. Then the mother's amniotic fluids were analyzed. And in that moment, Ozaki's team made their first revolutionary discovery. Even though many scientists believed that the smell of the baby's head was given by the amniotic fluid, the chemical analysis showed that the composition of the two was different. This means there really is something special about baby's head smell. There you have it, devotees. Science-backed research. So it's not just, it seems like a Vedic tradition cited in, an older scripture called the Srimad Bhagavatam, but now science has also backed it up that there's something about baby's head. But of course, in the context, we see that this, relationship between mother and child or father and child, parents and their child is, a genuine relationship. And I think there's so many quotations given in the Vedas about how, specifically a mother's love for a child is, very unconditional. And, we understand, our parents will do anything. They have sacrificed so much, for raising us, for, taking care of us, for, being there since birth, until we grow up and become adults. And, this kind of love between parent and child is a example, or the closest example of, what true love really means. So, of course, when we talk about true love, we're not talking on the material platform. We're talking on the spiritual platform of our relationship with our eternal Father, Krishna. So the relationship between the Supreme Father and the Spirit Soul. So Narad Muni narrates to Yudhishthira to show him that even demons have soft spots. Like in this case, Hiranyakashipu is just in a tearful state with his son. But of course, he's teaching the example that it's very, very unstable, as we'll find out. So we see that natural affection exists even in the demoniac species. It's innate in all living entities. This is what we need to understand, that, this natural love for Krishna, natural affection for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is there in the relationship between Krishna and the living entity or the spirit soul. So we're not talking about material relationships, but just on the spiritual platform. So we can understand that on the material platform, even though all of our hearts, at least my heart, is so hard, still there is times when there is a softening that takes place. So we can understand that because of lifetime and lifetimes of conditioning, we view current birth, world, and activities in a certain way. And the whole idea of understanding that, we are spirit soul and we are not these bodies is to gradually shed these layers of coverings that, have kind of like encaged our heart in so many layers that it's become completely covered. So we understand the goal is to shed all of these layers and, expose our real spiritual self. We understand that the soul is in the region of the heart. So we want to, uncover all of these layers and make our heart, like we said in some previous class, make our hearts soft like butter, so that Krishna can come and steal it. We know Krishna is Makanchor, butter thief. So let us all endeavor to make our hearts very, very soft in this way. So we see Prahlad's humility. In this instance, it can even disarm hatred. So of course, Hiranyakashipu had, become, so agitated by Prahlad's behavior to date. But Prahlad's humility in this instance, really melted his heart even for a moment. Another theme that we are learning is material affection is temporary and conditional. So we want to go beyond the material and gradually transcend the modes, gradually elevate ourselves, from the mode of ignorance to the mode of passion to the mode of goodness, and then use the mode of goodness as a springboard to get onto the spiritual platform. So we understand that, in the spiritual realm, spiritual love is very, very steady. It's unlike here in the material world where material love fluctuates. Today I love you, tomorrow I hate you. And, like Prahlad Maharaj has been teaching, that there's this concept of friends and enemies. And as a result, all these emotions come and go. So love that is based on bhakti, not ego, it can become very unbreakable. So we can all understand in our own lives, we've all had, moments of affection, whether it's parents, friends, family. We can all relate, to some affectionate dealings that we've had with each other, where, our heart definitely has softened. We've become, emotional, like Hiranyakashipu. But of course, we also can relate that, it was just a temporary moment. And, then suddenly I started to remember, why I was angry at somebody and why I should not be feeling this way. So we can understand the duality in the material world. What else? So then I was also remembering the pastime, similar pastime in one sense, of King Kamsa. He was also a very, very powerful demoniac king, and he had so many agendas of becoming the supreme controller again, denying the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we know in that pastime, of course, he had Vasudeva and Devaki all shackled and chained up, and he was killing their children one after another, because the 8th child was predicted to kill him. And we saw in that pastime as well that he had no mercy. on all of these children. And then we saw at some point, when the 8th child supposedly was born and he had come to kill, he had picked up the child and was about, to hurl the child onto the floor and kill the child. We, understand that pastime. It was actually Yogamaya that had just flew up into the air and, chastised King Kamsa. And gave the I'm just trying to find that quickly, sorry. Okay, so in the 10th canto, in chapter 4, the atrocities of King Kamsa, all of these details are there. And in text 9. So it starts in text 9. The child, Yogamaya Devi, the younger sister of Lord Vishnu, slipped upward from Kamsa's hand and appeared in the sky as Devi, the goddess of Durga, with 8 arms completely equipped with weapons. The goddess Durga was decorated with flower garlands, smeared with sandalwood. And in text 12, she says, "O Kamsa, you fool! What will be the use of killing me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has been your enemy from the very beginning, and who will certainly kill you, has already taken birth." After speaking to Kamsa in this way, the goddess Durga, Yogamaya, appeared in different places, such as Varanasi, and became celebrated by different names. After hearing the words of goddess Durga, Kamsa was struck with wonder. And then, he starts to approach Devaki and Vasudeva. He immediately removes the shackles and very humbly spoke as follows. And, so here in these following verses, we see that even, this great King Kamsa, he starts to speak in a certain way. "Alas, my sister, alas, my brother-in-law, I'm indeed so sinful that exactly like a man-eater, Rakshasa, who eats his own child, I have killed so many sons born of you. Being merciless and cruel, I have forsaken all my relatives and friends. Therefore, like a person who has killed a Brahmana, I do not know to which planet I shall go, either after death or while breathing. Alas, not only human beings, but sometimes even providence lies. And I am so sinful that I believed the omen of providence and killed so many of my sister's children. O great souls, your children have suffered their own misfortune. Therefore, please do not lament for them. All living entities are under the control of the Supreme, and they cannot always live together." So we see that, even King Kamsa is starting to preach this very, very high philosophy to Devaki and Vasudeva. In one sense, he's trying to pacify them. He is, but at the same time, he's explaining Atma Tattva. He's explaining, very, very high philosophy that we are not these bodies, we are spirit souls. And he goes on to explain how he was bewildered by and tricked by providence, thinking that the 8th child was going to kill him, and this way he acted in certain ways. So in text 19, Prabhupada in his purport gives a nice summary of this concept of Atma Tattva. Although Kamsa is described as a demon, he had good knowledge of the affairs of Atma Tattva, the truth of the self. 5,000 years ago, there were kings like Kamsa, who is described as an Asura, but he was better than modern day politicians and diplomats who have no knowledge about Atma Tattva. As stated in the Vedas, Asango hi ayam Purusha, the spirit soul, has no connection with the changes of the material body. The body undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, sustenance, byproducts, dwindling, and then annihilation. But the soul undergoes no such changes. Even after the annihilation of a particular bodily form, the original source of the bodily elements does not change. The living entity enjoys the material body, which appears and disappears. But the five elements, earth, water, air, fire, and ether, remain the same. The example given here is that pots and dolls are produced from the earth, and when broken or destroyed, they mingle with their original ingredients. In any case, the source of supply remains the same. As already discussed, the body is made according to the desires of the soul. The soul desires, and thus the body is formed. Krishna therefore says in Bhagavad Gita 18:61, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hirdesha Arjuna Tistati Brahmayam Sarvam Bhutani Yantraruddhani Mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated on a machine made of the material energy. Neither the super soul, Paramatma, nor the individual soul changes its original spiritual identity. The Atma does not undergo birth, death, or changes like the body. Therefore, a Vedic aphorism says, Asango hi ayam purusha. Although the soul is conditioned within the material world, he has no connections with the changes of the material body. So, we see Prahlad Maharaj acting, in this way. He's not connected to the body. So his father's been trying to kill him, in so many different ways. Still, he's paying obeisances to his father. Why? Because he understands this essential truth that we are not these bodies, we are spirit souls. And, there's no weapon that can kill the spirit soul. Nothing can break it, nothing can tear it apart. So if we can act on that platform, then we can have some hope of, understanding that we are not these bodies. We are spirit soul. What else? So yesterday for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj's disappearance, Ajmil gave such a nice class, and he was reading different messages from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. And one of the things that stood out for me was when he said that Bhaktisiddhanta said, we are the instruments. And I think it was something like, we are instruments and not the musicians or players. And so, suddenly I said, oh, yes, actually, that's true. We always, well, at least I always say, kind of like mechanically, that we want to be the instruments of our spiritual master. We want to be the via medium. But yeah, I never, thought about it in more detail, that yes, we are actually the instruments. We are not the doers. We are not the musicians playing the instruments. Of course, there is a musician, but we understand also that it can be tricky, because we can start to think that we are actually the doers. And we know this famous verse from Bhagavad Gita 3:27, Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha ahankara vimudhatma karteham iti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of the false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So this is why it becomes important for us to understand the three modes of material nature. And Bhagavad Gita gives us extensive descriptions of the three modes of material nature, that there's an entire chapter dedicated to understanding what is the three modes of material nature and how one behaves in these different modes. And so you can understand where you are at any given point in time in your spiritual journey as well. So like we said, we want to get, at least in this lifetime, try to get to the mode of goodness. At least it's a gradual development in the association of devotees. And if we can follow this process of Krishna consciousness, we can gradually make spiritual advancement. And the goal, of course, is to be an eternal servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. So then I started to think and about, how so many great personalities, like how we heard yesterday about even Raghunath Das Goswami, he was from such a wealthy family. We know the pastime, or even heard yesterday as well. Know the pastime how Raghunath Das Goswami was, just living as a mendicant, begging, to provide for his sustenance. And, even he abandoned that at some point, and he was just even drinking buttermilk. So here's a rich person. Was he just doing it for show? No, he understood, we are not these bodies. We are spirit souls. We remember the example of Jad Bharat, after he had taken birth as a deer, after that, when he realized, he's fall down. After he had taken birth again, he did not want to participate in any activities. And, that's why he was behaving as, just some person who was very, very awkward in society, had no knowledge. He didn't want to, integrate with the material world, even though he knew his royalty, he wanted to have no part of it. So, he was actually behaving like a madman at some point when he was carrying the king's palanquin. He didn't want to step on the ants. People thought that, he was just some low-class person. That's how he was behaving, just as a very low-class person. We remember that example of our previous acharyas, even Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj didn't want to interact so much. He was just, didn't want to take disciples even. We remember that pastime of Bhakti Siddhanta, wanting to take initiation. But, they just didn't want to have so much interaction. And of course, there was no selfish reasons for behaving like that. They were all acting on the spiritual platform. Okay, I think that's all I had on the one-line purport. If someone has more realizations on the true meaning of that purport, please share them. Thank you, devotees, for your time. I hope everyone's still there.
Yeah, Prabhu, thank you so much for the educational class. Really appreciate it. I guess I don't have a question. I just wanted to reassure you that I'm still here.
Very well, thank you. Bye. So we want to be like Prahlad Maharaj, steady in our devotional service, remaining fixed. So from time to time, I try to synthesize, devotional service. Of course, there's unlimited amounts of service that one can do. We see that the Bhagavatam has got, unlimited things to learn. And, with my small brain, which I find, as the years go by, it's becoming smaller and smaller, somehow or the other. What are some of the things, like basic tenets to try to never forget. And I from time to time just reflect on them. So some of the things was reflecting on the 26 qualities of devotee, chanting 16 attentive rounds, following the 4 regulative principles, and engaging in devotional service, associating with devotees. Then there's the 6 loving exchanges, daily reading, and gradually, by at least following these basic principles on a daily basis, one can gradually, slowly, but surely start uncovering the layers that's built around and encaged the heart. At the last TP meetings, one recommendation, I don't know if I mentioned it previously, but one recommendation that Bhattan Narayan Maharaj was giving us was every leader should have a hobby. And yeah, of course, according to our natures, we have this tendency to engage in some sort of activity that gives one relaxation and calmness and peace of mind. And so there is different hobbies. I've been fortunate that by the mercy of the devotees and Guru Parampara, that I'm here in Gita Nagari. And of course, we all know about Gita Nagari. It's a service wonderland. There's unlimited hobbies, unlimited engagements, unlimited things that we can all participate in. Whatever it is, whatever you like. And yeah, I have many, many hobbies. There's, of course, service, so many services to be done, but then I also have so many hobbies that I like to do. So in this way, gradually, if we try to stay fixed in Krishna consciousness, then we can gradually shed the layers and make spiritual advancement. Any other thoughts and realizations? Prahlad Maharaj, great example. Let's follow in Prahlad Maharaj's footsteps. Let's pay obeisances genuinely, not just as fake to anyone that we that has caused us pain and suffering. Imagine the pain and suffering that Prahlad Maharaj had to endure. Of course, he was not feeling anything on the spiritual platform, and that's why he was equipoised. So let us try to rise to that level of understanding too. Okay, today is a cold day. Stay warm, devotees. If there's nothing else, Rantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go. Yari bol. I'm going to